Good evening, everybody. My name is Lindsay Garcia, and I'm the Executive Director of the 22Q Family Foundation, and I'm proud to bring you our final series of our webinar series with the UC Davis Mind Institute. And this one is focused on adults, adulting with 22Q, real journeys, real voices. And I just want to take a moment to say happy 22Q Awareness Month to everyone. We're halfway through the month and just so impressed with how involved the community gets at this time of year. So keep up the great work. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first part of the team here. Her name is Kathy Angusteri, and she is a developmental behavioral pediatrician from the UC Davis Mind Institute.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Angusteri, and I run the 22Q Research and Clinic over at UC Davis at the Mind Institute in Sacramento. And we love partnering with the 22Q Foundation. It's been really exciting to do these webinars, and I've learned a lot through it. So it's been really fun, and it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Reuter and Benny Klenzar. So Steve Reuter is our amazing transition specialist here at the UC Davis Mind Institute. He's part of our Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities and is just amazing in terms of his support that he provides to families both individually as well as his trainings that he takes across the country. He's also a facilitator for the Northern California Business Advisory Council, and he's just a wealth of knowledge in terms of adult supports for individuals with developmental disabilities. And he'll be helping facilitate our questions and conversations today with our panelists. So our first panelist that I'll introduce, and Lindsay will introduce the other, is Benny Klenzar. And they're an amazing person who's had many of the challenges associated with 22Q, and they're an inspiration in how they persevered and worked through these difficulties. And they're currently a student at Eastern Michigan University. I'm extremely excited for them to share their insights and successes in the transition to adulthood as an adult with 22Q. So we're so glad to reconnect with you, Benny, and have you here today.
And I'm going to introduce our next panelist, Peter Mason. He's an adult with 22q deletion syndrome who lives in Connecticut. He's an artist, custom sneaker artist and collector, and a musician. He's been drumming since he was 3 years old, and he shares his story with others in and out of the 22q community to help raise awareness for 22q. He enjoys being part of the 22q family and helping to grow the community. He hopes to inspire others in the community in a positive light. And recently, Peter joined our board of directors at the 22Q Family Foundation and has helped us with a multitude of different campaigns, the most recent one being our first ever 22Q virtual talent show. So thank you so much, Peter, for joining us tonight as well. So how this is going to work tonight is we have these two incredible panelists that are adults. Obviously, as our community is ever growing, it's just a really important thing to show what adults look like with 22Q, the amazing successes and accomplishments they have, even with all the other struggles that they've kind of overcome. And so we'll be kind of feeding some various questions to them, but we do encourage you to put your questions or comments in the chat if you're watching this, obviously on Facebook, so that we can feed them to them after they're done presenting. So I'm going to kick us off with our first question. And how about we start with Peter answering first? So the first question I'm going to ask you both is just tell us what it was like growing up with 22Q.
Growing up, there was a lot of challenges, medically, school-wise. My parents put me through public school, and I was in a lot of special education courses growing up. And, I did a lot of things like speech therapy and OT to help get me moving and talking. I remember getting sick a lot as a kid with ear infections, and I had so many surgeries as a kid. So those are just some of the challenges I went through. I had open heart surgery at 9 years old. So just a whole bunch of complicated health issues that just kind of were thrown my way that I've handled each one.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Peter. And Benny?
Hi, I'm Benny. I use they, them pronouns. Growing up with 22Q was also challenging for me. I have a de novo variation, so that means nobody else in my family has it. So my parents couldn't have passed it down for me. So I like to say that I'm the definition of, well, stuff happens, you know, you gotta roll with it. Um, so yeah, I also had an open heart surgery at 5 months old. I had 5 holes in each part of my heart. So we had that done really quick. And then I had my tonsils taken out at age 9. And then I started falling a lot in school. And I always knew that there was like something weird or off about me. I just couldn't conceptualize that I had a disability, let alone a genetic disorder. Like I couldn't like understand that. I just intuitively knew that I wasn't like the other kids. Like I couldn't like physically play with the other kids. So, and I was wondering why I always fell. Like always just kept falling in recess, and I was made fun of for that. And we found out that like, oh, there's a bone deformity in my knee, and we needed to get that fixed. I was also born with cavus feet and hammer toes on both feet. So I had my feet flattened first, and then I had my orthoscopic knee surgery, and then I had um I had my total knee reconstruction surgery at age 12 with my hammer toe surgery at the same time. And I had to go to Philadelphia for that because nobody here in Michigan would do it, perform the surgery. So I had to drive um, really long to Philadelphia. And I haven't been back in Philadelphia since the surgery, but I hope to go one day. But I also went through speech therapy before and after my tonsil surgery. Um, and I really hated speech therapy a lot. I really did not like speech therapy at all. I mean, I did not like being told what to do as a kid, and that was just like being told what to do all the time. But I also went through OT a little bit and when at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and I also went through a boatload of PT, and that took me until around 16. I think that's when PT started, you know, tapering off. And I had initially I was walking with a big brace from my hip to my toes for a couple years, and then I had a brace from my underneath my kneecap to my toe, and then after high school I just have an ankle brace, and that's what I use now. So now I'm just dealing with more so ADHD symptoms, and socializing as an adult is super hard, not just because of 22q, but because I'm like naturally a shy person. I wasn't like, you know, I was also a shy kid. So I'm still like trying to like get myself out there, which is challenging, but I am, you know, working through it day by day. And that's where I am now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It sounds like you both have a lot in common, you know, with lots of kind of medical interventions and surgeries. And we know that that's very common with 22q. But it's also really inspiring to see that all that you guys have been through from a medical standpoint, and you know, you're here with us today shining and sharing your story, is really reassuring to, you know, people that have younger kids with this. So I'm going to let Steve take our next question.
Thank you. You know, as you guys were talking and thinking about all you went through as a child, I was thinking about that for anybody. It's so hard for us to learn about ourselves, have a vision for what we think we want to do in our lives, and then to learn how to speak up and how to advocate for ourselves. So my question is, like, how did you guys find the voice, your own voice for yourself? And Peter, let's go ahead and start with you again, please.
So I found my voice kind of in my early to mid-teens. My parents have been very helpful in that aspect. They let me kind of just be my own voice from an early age. and that included things like going to the doctor's offices on my own and appointments, um, and just figuring out a lot of things on my own and just trying to be as independent as I can, which isn't entirely common with 22Q, but they just let me run with it. And I've been going to my own doctor's appointments now for over 20 years. I have them step in occasionally when like bigger things happen, like when I had my corneal transplants and all the big stuff. I would have them step in. Um, but they've basically allowed me to be as independent as I can, whether it's doing art projects and traveling on my own, which I love to do. I just got back from my first 22Q camp, which was awesome. Um, so they've really just allowed me to be as free as I can, and that helped a lot.
Thank you, Peter. Benny, did you have something that you wanted to add to this one?
Oh yeah. So for me, finding my voice was extremely challenging in the beginning because I had a speech delay until around 4 to 5 years old. So I went through a lot of speech therapy around that age up till I would say 8 years old ish. So I couldn't like talk like normally like how the other kids could. So I expressed myself through writing. And one of the main ways I expressed myself through writing was playwriting. And I kind of intuitively knew what a play was without really like knowing how to actually write a play. Like it was probably just scribbles on a page, but I knew like it was a play in my mind. Um, and so I studied playwriting for a long time. Um, that's what I'm doing now for fun. And it was really more easy to imagine myself through imaginary scenarios um as a kid, so I can like prepare myself to see like what could happen in real life. So like that was really helpful. And also theater was a super incredibly awesome tool for me to help me find my voice and help me find my personality and friends. And I still love theater to this day. So yeah, writing, theater, dance, TV. I loved Hannah Montana as a kid. I couldn't stop watching that show. I loved Miley Cyrus. I still do. So watching shows like that really helped me like discover who I am as well. Yeah, just being a really expressive person took a really long time for me to, you know, um, take to discover myself because I was like in the hospital a lot of times, so I couldn't like really understand how to advocate for myself. But over time, I've learned to, navigate how to advocate for myself in high school mostly.
If I can just say real quick, I love kind of what you both said, that no one is born with the skill set to really understand yourself, to begin to navigate. Peter, the fact that you were having anything to do with medical appointments as a child is pretty stunning. But I really love the fact that you both talked about the development and that finding something that helped you have a foothold and then growing from that. I think is so important.
I'm going to ask the next question, but I do appreciate both of you. I hear a lot from individuals with 22Q, this really great skill in music and theater and arts. And I'm so glad you guys both found your passion, and it's something that's been with you all your lives. And I think it's really important. So that's great. Um, Peter, you might have touched on this a little bit. Maybe there's a little more you might want to say about the question. Next question is about what steps did you take to build on your independence? And we'll start with you and then Benny.
So that was a huge part of it was basically just my parents and my family and my own local community too. Being a part of a local drum corps community from the age of like 3 years old on, and picking up a pair of drumsticks at that age, my dad was responsible for that, but I was allowed to be free with that and hang out with as many people as I wanted from a very early age, and I was never shy because of that, and because of the community that I've always hung around and still hang around today. So that's a huge part of gaining my independence.
That's great. A place where you felt comfortable and able to express yourself. That doesn't come easy,
Hmm.
especially at a young age. So that's
No,
great. You had that venue.
and especially with 22Q.
Right, right. That's great. Thanks. Benny?
So it took a long time for me to gain my independence, and I'm still like learning how to gain it through young adulthood. But I think physical therapy and all the other types of therapies that I've been through really, really helps with that. Also, just getting to learn who I vibe with, like friendship wise, friendships really helps me not just understand who I am and who I like to hang out with, but like, independence and hanging out with them more also really helped. Also my parents too, really assisted with that independence. They really, really encourage, self-motivation and independent thinking and all that. So, and I've really just gained a lot of independence moving here on campus. This is the first time I've ever moved out of my house ever a couple years ago. This is my third year on campus, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I love it here. And if like I was super hesitant at first a couple of years ago. I hated the thought leaving my house for school for like 4 or 5 months at a time. But now I love it. This is like the most independent I've ever felt, but it took a long time to come here. But I'm glad that I'm here.
Thanks for sharing that, Benny. It's really hard doing those things at first. And I know for parents hearing that, it's hard to know, like, how hard do I push? They say they don't want to do it, and so it's you got to take it each day at a time and individually what happens with it. But it's really helpful to hear about that.
Yeah, I just love hearing your different kind of varieties of independence. And Peter didn't really mention this, but Peter's been like a world traveler with his Pfeiffer Drum Corps with his family, and recently traveled from Connecticut, where he lives, to San Antonio to a 22Q camp that's put on by 22Q Texas. And he just does it with such ease, and it's just really reassuring to me as a mom of a younger child that, like, this might be possible for my kid one day. And even with, all of the obstacles that you faced, Peter, I'm just really impressed by that. So I wanted to make sure I gave you a shout out for that. So the next question is, even, with building this independence, obviously, we have different challenges that we see in the 22Q profile that change, in the different seasons of life. So as an adult, what has been most helpful for you to navigate challenges that have come up being an adult? So Peter, do you want to go first?
Can you just repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, what has been most helpful to you to navigate challenges that have come up as an adult?
Okay, so the first thing is my parents allowed me to kind of gain that independence when I was very young, as much as they would allow, as much as I would allow myself as well. The other part of it is knowing when I need help, because everyone, 22Q or not, needs help at some point in their life, and it's hard to admit it sometimes. So that's one thing I've had to learn, especially later in life. Now, I just turned 38 about a week ago, so it took me a while to figure out that I'm going to need help with a lot of things. A lot of things I'm not going to need help with, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think talk about kind of your early independence early on. A lot of us, as from a caregiver, hearing you guys talk about your experience is a lot of times us as caregivers, because we've been through a lot with you guys as kids, and there's been a lot of trauma there that we tend to hold a tight grip. I can speak for myself in saying that. And so there really needs to be that transition earlier than later, right? Because a lot of times, at least here at the foundation, I get calls from parents that are asking me, my child's not interested in driving yet or dating, and maybe they're like 18 or 20. But they kind of expect this, like, going from parent advocacy to self-advocacy, like, just a snap and it's there. But I think everything that you've done early on and like going to those doctor's appointments early on has
Hmm.
built so much independence for you to help kind of navigate life as an adult. And I love the part that you said about asking for help. That's a huge thing
Hmm.
that so many of us, even just, adults that don't have
Yep.
22Q don't know how to do. So,
It's
Benny,
not easy to ask for help.
yeah, definitely. Benny, would love to hear from you about what's been most helpful for you to navigate challenges as an adult.
I would also say my parents were an extremely important part of gaining independence. I wasn't so independent in high school. I was really actually the opposite. I was really dependent. My parents both physically and mentally, emotionally, which is why it was so hard for me to move here. To Yipsy when I lived like 30 minutes away, even though that's not really a long way away, but to me it really was. I might as well have moved out of state at the beginning. But yeah, so my parents were really helpful, and honestly, it took a lot of self motivation to really want independence because I really had to sit with myself and ask myself, do I really want this independence or do I just want to be like stuck here, in my house my whole life? And I'm a really like free spirit, but I'm like stuck in this disabled body that's really tired and I feel like 80, but like my spirit feels like I'm 8. So I feel like young and old at the same time, and it's really challenging to like navigate life like that. Um, so yeah, independence was like really hard for me to understand and to actually want, but like over time, especially through the pandemic, I really like needed that independence because we were all stuck inside. I can't take the vaccine and I really just wanted to like get out there. Um and yeah, definitely being a shy person as a kid didn't really help, but yeah, so my parents helped and myself like learning how to cope during the pandemic and how learning to discover like that inner independence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing.
So the next question that we have is the idea of you guys have really, talked a lot about the things that you do independently. And Benny, you mentioned the fact that there are still areas, as there is for all of us, where you're still continuing to receive support. And so can you share with us the areas that you still receive support from your parents? And if there are and if there are ways that has been super helpful for you and ways that you may be looking to begin to fade that a bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
So my parents help me now with logistics like going to the grocery store and to doctor's appointments. But they also help me just emotionally. I can like FaceTime basically whenever, except midnight when we're all sleeping. So that I can still have that virtual connection and with other family members as well. Especially my sister, she's a big help emotionally. So that my parents helped me through that. Also helping me understand like big grown up money because money is really hard for me to understand. It's always been very, very challenging. I still don't understand it, but it's there and I have to understand it. They've been a huge help financially. Um, and also with getting like mental health assistance as well, that they have been a huge help in that area as well.
Thank you, Benny. Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about the areas that you still receive help from? It's interesting because we keep talking about parents, but you're bringing in the fact that there's also extended family and other people. But can you talk a little bit about the areas that you are still really
Sure.
thankful for that support?
So my parents are still helpful in so many ways. My parents are about 70 years old now, and they're still driving me around because I have another disease called keratoconus, which, I've had to have 3 corneal transplants because of that. So I currently can't drive at this moment. So I have to rely on my parents and friends and other relatives to bring me around to places. I still go to my appointments on my own, but I still need to get there somehow because some of my appointments are pretty spread out in our state. But so I have that support, but I also rent an apartment for my parents. We have a 3 family home, so I pay rent to them. And as Benny said, money is very challenging, but I've been learning to manage that over the last few years a lot. Um, and my parents are a huge help with that at times too, and my family in general as well. So just having those support systems in place is a huge help. I can just call them, or I can go downstairs and have dinner with them if I want, and it's a huge help to have them here. So,
Yeah.
so.
I have to say, I have many of the same kinds of supports that I've received from my parents. And so, yeah, you're describing such a natural way of receiving support from family. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So the next question, you've told us a little bit, but maybe both of you can give us a little bit more of the timeline about your life after finishing high school. You've told us about where you live and work in school, but how did that transition go about for you guys? And I'll start with Benny.
So I graduated in 2018. It feels like 20 years, but it's only been around like 6 or 7 years ago. I went to Henry Ford online at first. So that was still challenging, even though it was online. I had to that's where the self-motivation came in because I couldn't, just not do my homework. Like it was still online, but it was very also challenging during the pandemic. Because everyone else was online now, so everyone else had to congregate online. So and then I graduated Henry Ford like 2022. And then I got admitted here in 2023, and then I moved in the fall of 2023, and I'm supposed to graduate in the winter of 2027. Hopefully. So yeah.
Was that a natural kind of like, since you already started online, you wanted to do in person, or how did the idea come to you?
I didn't offer it at all. I was vehemently against it. I wanted to stay online. I actually had to take a couple of in-person courses at Henry Ford because they couldn't offer it online, and I reluctantly went. And it was math, and I was, really reluctant for that. I do not like math at all.
That is common.
Yeah, and in the winter it's very gloomy. So yeah, it was only in Dearborn though, so it wasn't that, big of a drive. But still, I pushed through, thankfully. So yeah, that wasn't really natural at all. It was very artificial, in fact. And it was very bumpy. It was a short but bumpy ride because it was only a year, and a year flies by, and the next thing I know, I was, getting ready for college. That actually was really stressful because I got accepted here in July, and that took me like just a month to get ready for, first move in, and it was very hard to move in here with all the new people and all the new sounds and smells, and the new schedule. Like, oh, I can eat whenever I want to, I can eat in bed whenever I want to. Like, I can do my homework whenever, I can do anything, but I have the consequences, of doing anything I want to. And that was kind of tricky in the first year to just, have this overwhelming amount of freedom. Yeah, that it was really overwhelming at first. And so if the first couple of months here, I kind of like, I not shut down, but like I was really just kind of scared of all this freedom because it was like a brand new world.
Yeah.
So yeah, and but now like the transition is more smooth.
And do you get supports at school to kind
Yes. Mhm.
and then did that happen automatically too, or did you have to go ahead and advocate for yourself to get those in place?
I can't really remember.
Mhm.
It was I had to do like a transcript, from Henry Ford to EMU. I think that did happen like automatically. Um, I did have to advocate for myself though in middle school more so
Yeah.
often. Um, and even back then, I remember in my special ed class, I couldn't describe my disability because I didn't really know even then what it was, but now I can easily, not easily, 22Q is not easy. I can somewhat simply explain my disorder, and I get weird looks even from disabled parents. I'm like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of that before. It's very odd, but yeah, advocating for myself on who I am and what I am is hard. Um, so yeah, that was tricky in the beginning, but now it's kind of more smoothly like, okay, from Henry Ford, I get to have like mostly just extensions now for assignments, especially in my journalism class, because there's a lot, it's all deadlines in that class, but I need way longer than the normal person does in that class. Um, but asking for help in that class is way harder for some reason. Cause I'm like, hey, I'm disabled, but I need an extension. I'm a little more apprehensive. But in my other courses, I'm like, hey, I need an extension like right now. I can't handle this. I have too much going on right now. My ADHD brain can't have 5 assignments due in one day. like, so for depending on which class it is, I'm more confident, but in other courses, it can be more challenging to advocate for myself.
That's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. Peter, can you tell us more about your life story after high school, how you got to the place you are now?
So unlike Benny, I was actually graduated 20 years ago, so it's been a while. Actually, next year is my 20th reunion. Um, so there were a lot of challenges early on that I hit a lot of bumps in the road. I went to school early on and dropped out, partially because of health issues and partially because it was just so overwhelming to take on a huge workload. Um, so I dropped out after 3 years. I came close to getting my associate's degree the first time, came close the second time. Um, and then I realized the second time I didn't really need a degree for culinary arts. so, um, but in my 20s, that was probably some of the hardest times for me, health wise, mental health wise. There was a point in my 20s where I didn't want to identify with 22Q, which I know is kind of common now. And we all struggle with that at some point. And I just wanted to have some sense of normalcy without telling anyone about the health issues constantly, without going through them. So I hit a lot of them, and some of them just came up over time to where I would just, I built up and I had to say something about it and had to speak up for myself a lot more, which was a huge push for me. Um, so, that was also when I was diagnosed with keratoconus in my early 20s. So, that was just another huge hurdle on top of 22Q that I'm still dealing with today. It's got a lot of unexpected things that can come up with it. And they've made a lot of advances with the disease as well. So, fingers crossed I might actually get full vision restored, but it may take a little while. I currently only see out of one eye at the moment, and it's 20/20 vision in the left eye. Um, but I dealt with a lot of surgeries in my 30s too. So I've dealt with cochlear implants. I've been in ICU twice in my adult life as well. Um, I don't remember a lot behind them. I think one of them I had a spinal tap, so I was in there for a few days. And the other one was for epilepsy, so I dealt with seizures late in life, which is not quite as common to just kind of get seizures out of random, but so I've had to learn over about a 7 year period how to push through some of the hardest challenges that I've ever been through. Um, and just being able to really advocate for myself just like I did when I was younger. And it landed me in contact with Lindsay and the foundation eventually, and I've been able to do a lot of great work with the foundation. So, and I'm just trying to kind of find myself now and what I want to do long term with work, because I worked in restaurants for about 12 years and it's not the most steady pay or the most steady hours. And I think that partially burnt me out to where I just didn't want to work for a while and it was causing so many health issues. So I just took a break for a couple years. I did a little bit of traveling, um, a lot of it with the drum corps. So it's just a lot of unexpected challenges with 22Q and keratoconus, but I've learned to deal with them as they come. Sometimes it's more overwhelming, sometimes it's less overwhelming, but I've learned that you can deal with them. So.
So I believe we have one more question that we're going to do before we stop recording, but we will continue to ask questions after this. But the question that I would like to ask both Peter and Benny is what is one thing with as you look at your life that you'd like to change about yourself? Peter, would you like to go first?
It's actually hard to pick exactly one thing at the moment, but I don't regret having 22Q. A lot of people say, um, why don't you try to find ways to get it cured or stuff like that? I don't regret any of that. It makes me a stronger person, actually, I think. But one area where I struggle so bad right now is organization. And I know that's super common with 22Q and other disabilities as well. I've always struggled with organization since I was a kid. If you look at my lockers in middle school and high school, you'd think like a tornado hit it. But I'm just now starting to find my stride with organizing, but it's still a constant struggle to keep up on things and keep up on schedules. And I need to give myself constant reminders. Like sometimes if I have meetings with Lindsay, I'll have to like text her like 2 or 3 days before I think I might have one, and sometimes there won't be a meeting. But it's better to just check up on it and make sure. So.
Thank you, Peter. Benny, what is something that what's the one thing, if you had one thing that you could change about yourself, what would that be?
Well, I definitely agree with the organization part, the disorganization. It's very challenging, and I feel like I'll always have that challenge, to be honest. But currently, nothing right now. But if you'd asked me this question a couple years ago, I would definitely say my voice. Like I've always hated the sound of my voice. And I know it's a very common trait.
I'll second that.
Because I've been told I sound like a child, and I've actually kind of took on that idea, like childlike identity, because like children are smart. What's wrong with being a child? Like we were all children once. But yeah, I've always been told by other people like, hey, you look like 16, but like I'm 25. Or like when I was 19, like I still like, and I sound, because my facial structure, I sound like I'm sick, and I'm also getting over a sickness, so like my voice sounds deeper, weirdly enough. Like I sound nasally. I always sound sick all the time. Like I was like got weird looks from kids. Like, why do you sound sick? Are you sick? I'm like, no, no. Also in theater, like if I was with the alto girls, I would sound too deep, but with alto boys, like what you're a girl in with the boys, you.
I'm the
That's so
opposite. I'm always told my voice sounds like a female's voice. Every time I make like a phone call to the pharmacy or something, they call me ma'am.
You know,
It gets frustrating.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's like I wish I try to like mimic other people's like laugh. Also the laugh. I hate my laugh. I hated my laugh. I'm getting used to like actually laughing like myself. Like in high school, I was like a chameleon. I tried to mimic everything everyone did, even down in the handwriting some people would do. Cause I just didn't like anything about 22Q. I wanted like disassociate from 22Q, but like it's hard to do that because I can't, disassociate from genetics. So it's a little bit hard. But telling myself through therapy also, recording myself and listening back has been helpful, and it's strange because I'm a theater kid, but I hate the sound of my voice. That it's very odd. It's a very odd combination. But I was always in the ensemble, so that I was okay with that. So yeah, finding like being comfortable with my voice has been a struggle, but over time I'm just like, who cares? Like I'm tired of being like, telling myself I don't like this about myself. I don't like this. Like it gets tiring after a while. And again, through therapy, I've learned more coping mechanisms to like handle, negative thoughts when it comes to like how I sound, which is why I was shy. Like that's basically why I was shy from the beginning is because of that, like a hatred for my voice. I know that's a strong word, but like I'm kind of comfortable with that because I truly did hate my voice, which is why I just, was so quiet as a kid. But yeah, I wouldn't really change anything now.
you know, I just want to give the background for that question to the people who are for the audience here. So I have worked with people with disabilities for over 40 years now, and what I have experienced throughout my career has been exactly what I've heard today, which is that it's very, very common that when we're young, we're very conscious about feeling different, and we really struggle oftentimes with things that are hard, hard in our lives. But when I asked this question, when we were prepping this, I simply asked a question. I gave no background. I didn't bias it. I just asked both Benny and Peter, what would you change about yourself? And I was not at all surprised that neither one of you said that what you really would want to change about yourself is who you are today, which includes having 22Q. And so I really wanted to put that in context because as Lindsay was saying, when we're parents and we have younger kids, we know what we know what we're experiencing at that point of the journey. But I think the fact that you both at this point in your life are very comfortable again with who you are, and part of that comfort and that acceptance is the fact that you have 22Q and you live such broad, open lives with the challenges that you have and the medical conditions that you have, but you are just out there living and embracing who you are and what you're, the life that you created for yourself. So I'm going to turn it back over to our former hosts, Lindsay and Kathy. Any final things before we'll continue on, but we're getting ready to end the recorded portion of this.
Yeah, I just before we move on to the questions and stop recording, I do want to make sure that I acknowledge and thank the UC Davis Clinical Translational Science Center who helped support this activity. Gloria has been great in helping us get organized and get this all together. And thank you very much for that. We have a couple questions. So what we might do is just stop recording now and I will get through some of them. I don't know that we'll get through all of them, but maybe the first question, I'll ask Peter first and then Benny. Can you tell us what you've found helpful to manage stress during these difficult times? I've heard a lot of um, difficult times that you guys have gone through, and you guys have just, kept pushing through, and it's helped to make you who you are today. But sometimes it's helpful to hear strategies or things that you've done um, that are useful for you that you fall back on for that.
So there's actually a few things I've done over the years. Therapy, as Benny mentioned, has been a huge coping mechanism for me, and just being able to open up to others about what I go through. It took me a long time to accept that I need to go to therapy, and not everyone wants to go through therapy. People like me can be really stubborn, admitting when you need things like that. And I just tend to be stubborn in general. And during the pandemic, I found other coping mechanisms that helped too. I started picking up a pen and a paintbrush and just started doing my own artwork. And that's been very therapeutic for me, aside from my music, because when the pandemic shut things down, I kind of lost a big activity in my life. And, being kind of a big people person and a hugger, I wasn't able to do that for 2 or 3 years. So I had to find other ways to kind of find happiness in different ways. I think there's one more thing that I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are the two big ones. Is the therapy, and I'm actually come to a point in my life where I don't need therapy, not at least in the long term run, because I've been doing it. There was a point where I was doing therapy for you know, twice a week at one point for several years. Because all the medical trauma that we go through, it builds up over time, and you don't want to talk about that. And there's some things you don't have to talk about. That's one of the things I've learned through therapy is you don't have to share every little detail in your life. There was a point where I was doing that, and the points where I wasn't doing that, and I've learned to balance what I can share with people and what I want to share with people. So therapy has been a huge help in that aspect. So.
Benny?
A stress reliever for me is writing. I have over time found that it's not only a stress reliever, but it's also very, very therapeutic for me. I've been able to express certain feelings that I couldn't really identify in my head, even with, therapeutic practices. And I found like poetry is like, especially the one art form that has helped me the most. I love poetry so much. And I've written so many poems about disabilities, and especially like disability community as well. In fact, like I remember this one time in my local gym, I was like in the indoor running track and I just couldn't like walk anymore. And I'm like, having 22q was like being a runner, but like having was like being on E the whole time, and like something along those lines, like something very theoretical, very and just not very literal. Being very creative with my words really helps me understand something as complex as 22q, because you do have to be very specific with understanding anything medical, but especially genetic disorders. It's so complicated. So having that writing therapy has been, and probably always will be, very helpful for me. The thing is, I really want to share it one day, but like I'm still really apprehensive about sharing it because I get super personal. It's like sharing a diary, basically. But hopefully one day I'll be able to share it, because there's this one poem that I'm super proud of, but I'm like, oh, it's a little personal. I don't know.
Yeah, it's great you have that outlet. And like Peter said, you don't have to share everything, right? When you're ready. And that's good
I
to
do though, through poetry. Everything just comes out. I can't help it.
know. Benny, what degree are you getting? Someone wanted to know.
Oh, I am majoring in English with a creative writing concentration, and my minor is in journalism.
And then question about state services, financial services, support, things like that for living on your own. Do you
I'm
get-
getting MRS assistance.
What does MRS stand for?
Michigan Rehabilitation Services.
Okay.
I forgot you aren't in Michigan. Whoops.
That's good. So you have some support from the state that you're able to apply for.
Yes,
And
correct.
Peter, is there any state funded support that you have?
Not exactly state funded, but I'm on disability at the moment.
Mhm.
And that is a huge conversation in the groups that I see on how do I go about going for that. And, you know, it takes a long time. It took me probably 3 or 4 years before I actually got accepted for it. And it's not a lot what I get, but it helps. I'd say I'm able to pay things like rent and buy some groceries once in a while and contribute more than I was before when I wasn't working. Um, and I also have the state healthcare insurance,
Good.
Husky Medicaid, and I'm on the D plan, so that basically allows me to get full coverage for all my surgeries whenever I need transplants. It's still a struggle. There's not every exact thing that you need, and it's always changing. But what you have in place for support is really great for what you have.
I did want to mention too, because I know you said it's talked about that topic in a lot of the groups. We recently launched our new website and a new program. So we always try to build resources from diagnosis through adulthood. And so one area where we're really kind of lacking in, and I think we are as a community lacking in, is providing those resources for people to manage and navigate adult services. So whether that's state waiver programs, SSI, SSDI. And so we have a new program that's on our website. You can learn more about it at 22qfamily.org. We have an adult benefits consultant. And so she
And I've talked to her too.
knowledge. Yeah, she's amazing. Her name's Lisa. She has a mid-20s-year-old with 22q, and she also worked for Social Security for a very long time. And so she can help walk you through those steps as well.
It still amazes me that so many people don't even want to talk about these programs that are out there.
Mhm.
They think that you shouldn't be getting the support, and they think it's a handout, but it's really not entirely that. It's like you need the assistance because you need it. You're
Mhm.
struggling with health issues in school. Ask for them. Don't be afraid to ask for them. Don't be afraid to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I feel like because of that stigma, like, oh, this is like a free handout, like, am I going to get rejected automatically? I think that's why people are so apprehensive in the beginning. And I feel like that needs to like go away for like for people to get help, because so many people need help and it's just not happening. And it's really sad.
It's like
And if
every
I
post that I see on that, like everyone posts anonymously, whether it's the actual post or the comments. We should be able to talk openly and honestly about it without getting into a fight about the simple discussion, because so many families do struggle with it. I get so many messages every day almost working for the foundation, like, where can I go for these resources? Like, I worry about my kid when they're getting older, like when what happens if I die? Like, what are the resources available for my kids? I just got probably 10 messages in the last week on that.
and if I can just reinforce the importance, and I'm so grateful that the foundation has a benefits counselor on site or is associated with the foundation now, because it is so important to not go on perception or not go on what you've heard, but instead talk to a qualified benefits counselor, because oftentimes people are able to work and still receive benefits. And
That's what I'm
Peter,
kind of going through now too,
yeah,
is the
and
process of being on it and transitioning from being on it to finding some sort of steady work, which is
well,
not
and
easy.
again, oftentimes you
So,
can do both, but again,
mhm.
it's important to talk to a counselor. But and Peter, as I will also just say that the idea behind disability is that the benefit of disability is for people who really have significant challenges
Mhm.
medically and can't consistently work. to the level that you can. And
Hmm.
so it is not a handout at all in that
No,
regard.
but so many people do view it as that, which needs to change that stigma,
Yeah.
which is why I talk about it.
That you're doing a great job bringing awareness to it. I have another question. So, do either of you have, someone's asking if either of you have a math disability? They said their daughter does so, and college has been very challenging to get past the core classes.
I'm allergic to math.
Yeah, same. So
So
I struggled
yes,
every
extremely.
year in math, and then I got to culinary school. That's where culinary school is extremely helpful. I failed probably 3 or 4 classes just based on the math alone. And you could probably relate to this right now, Benny, with especially college level math. It's so hard. But then I get to the baking courses, which baking and pastry work is something where I've always strived in, cooking wise. And I struggled at that kind of math early on, and then I was lucky enough to get a couple of professors who took time of their own without the resources of the school. They knew I was struggling, but they knew I could bake. So they took their time to help me understand this type of math in a way that I could understand it. I might have to tweak a few things. I might have to do it my own way, but they took their time, and I'm thankful for those professors.
I love cooking and baking too, but I wouldn't have gotten a degree in it because of that reason. I would need to retake it, and that's what happened at Henry Ford. I have never took a math class here, and that was my goal from the beginning. I'm like, I'm not taking any math courses at EMU. I'm just doing English for a reason.
Never
And
be afraid to ask for help. That's one thing I struggled in college was asking for help in
mhm,
math. But I was lucky for
yeah,
those 2 professors.
I also failed biology in both
Mhm.
in both high school and HFC. I had to retake biology and math at HFC, and one was in the fall, one was in the winter, and I thought it was the end of the world, but it wasn't. So I'm here, and I'm also very very hard on myself, especially with writing. Like I put myself on such a high standard, and nobody else does, but I've been so hard on myself from the beginning, and that's why it's been harder for me to turn in assignments because I'm not, this isn't like up to my standards, it's up to the syllabus standards but not to my standards, so therefore I cannot submit this is not submittable to me, but it is, and that's why I've had so many missing assignments in high school, but it was also because of very underdiagnosed ADHD. And I got diagnosed with ADHD at 19, the year after high school. But hey, I have it now, and I'm on medication, and it's like a whole new world. And I'm like, I'm not perfect. No, like I can't, say I'm perfect. Nobody's perfect. But my GPA coming in EMU was 2.7, and now it's 3.52. So
Great.
something changed.
That's awesome.
So something was done in the middle of that. So yeah, I was very grateful for that diagnosis. That kind of like changed my whole world, basically.
We have one last question, and this is already touching a little bit on what you just mentioned with some of the time management. The question was about time management skills you use as an adult with 22Q.
I should use them.
Same.
I should.
Living kind of on my own, like Benny said earlier, you get to make your own choices, your own schedules, but with consequences. If I don't do, like my biggest scheduling thing these days are my appointments and taking my medications each day. If I don't remind myself, I know I can get sick. So
Laundry is hard for me.
laundry is also
You
hard for
mentioned
me.
that to me before too.
I think it's
laundry.
hard for any adult, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I got rid of half of it, I'd be in such a better shape.
I know, right? And it's less money. We save money
Yep.
too. Like
But I
at
think you guys
EMU,
bring up a good point about that internal motivation. It's not just someone telling you have to do something. It's you kind of needing or wanting to do it because it matters to you or you see the
Yeah.
importance of
That
it.
took me a long time to realize that too, is that I really need to push myself as hard as I can and as hard as my body can take it. Because sometimes I know
Mhm.
not every day is going to be good.
Mhm.
And I know I'm going to have these days where my energy levels are just going to crash. But if you push yourself the next day and see what happens, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, I really want to like touch on that too, like pushing yourself. Because I've written so many times in my journals, I'm like, I want to go to this event, but my body's not letting me, and I'm really upset.
Oh, I've missed so much because of that same kind of thinking.
Like, it's so frustrating. It's like, oh, I want to do this one thing, or like, oh, I've been meaning to do this. Like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes a week,
And a week becomes a month.
and then a year, and so on and so forth until it's not done.
And 20 years later, you're done with high school.
That's why I don't have any hobbies, because they just don't get done. But yeah, like pushing myself, again, being like hard on myself has been so hard, like actually challenging. But now here it's like, I could do laundry, but I don't want to pay for it. So like I could, but then like there's only like 6 laundry machines here. So it's like, hey, if it's one open, then like, oh no, I can't do it. I guess I'll have to wait. Oh no.
I'm lucky
And
we
then I
have
have
a
to do
washer
it.
and dryer here.
Yes, you have it at your convenience.
And then
I have it here, and I still slack when I have it here.
Yep.
Well, Benny and Peter, thank you so much. This has been an amazing hour. Really, really glad you guys could share with us. I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay for the final moment here.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both for just kind of sharing your true and honest selves with all of us. I know it takes a lot of courage, especially with anxiety that runs in our community. So I know you had to step out of your comfort zone to do this, and it just means the world for us to kind of capture your story for others to hear. So thank you. We did post a link in the chat. So we really would love you just to take a minute to fill that out so we can continue to improve upon our webinars and see what you liked and like. But thank you guys again for joining us on this special conversation. And we hope you continue to get loud and proud for 22Q for the last 14 days of the month. And happy holidays to you guys as those come out soon too. Thank you so much, Steve and Kathy, also for your time and advice and opinions as always. So thank you.
Thank you
Everyone.
for having us.
Thank you.